Tonight, banking on a familiar face to breathe new life into the struggling Liberals. The former Bank of Canada governor formally returns to the fold.
They're doing something smart this week by bringing in Mark Carney. He's got a little star power.
What it means for the party and the Prime Minister. Air travel alerts. A looming work stoppage has passengers bracing for major upheavals.
There are not 110,000 empty seats to put these disrupted travelers in.
The heart-stopping moment. A bridge suddenly collapsed. A message of hope and good health from the Princess of Wales.
My path to healing and full recovery is long, and I must continue to take each day as it comes.
And tributes for one of the most recognizable faces and voices in entertainment.
I am your father.
Saying goodbye to James Earl Jones.
If you knew the power.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. The man who once led the central banks of two G7 countries and has long been touted as a possible successor to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is joining the Liberals as a special advisor on economic growth. Former Bank of Canada and Bank of England Governor Mark Carney's new role comes at a time when the Liberals are behind the Conservatives in the polls. Liberals hoping the additional firepower from the financial and banking world can help turn around their political fortunes. Carney is expected to speak to MPs at the Liberal caucus retreat in Nanaimo, British Columbia tomorrow. Michael Couture is there tonight and starts us off with the task ahead.
The waters are calm ahead of the Liberal caucus retreat in Nanaimo, BC, but one MP is risking rocking the boat as she brings a message from her constituents.
People think he should go. That's bottom line the message that I heard throughout the summer.
Alexandra Mendez says the overwhelming message in her Montreal area riding is that people don't think Trudeau should lead the Liberals anymore.
I'm not pushing anything, and I'm not hoping for anything that disunites us in any way to happen. I'm just hoping that this message is heard because it is a message I received.
Mendez believes it's important to have the conversation with the Prime Minister this week, but much of the talk today was around the announcement of Mark Carney as the new chair of the Liberal Task Force on Economic Growth. His job will be to help the Liberals shape a pragmatic, high-impact vision for Canada's economic success.
I think it's going to be very helpful to have a perspective that's from outside of politics, that is someone that, is esteemed in the space of economic leadership.
The opposition was quick to criticize Carney's appointment.
That is just a smoke and mirrors gimmick. At the end of the day, Mark Carbon Tax Carney loves the same policies that Justin Trudeau has imposed on Canadians.
Serving as the governor to both the Bank of Canada and England, Carney brings economic clout. But it might not help how people feel about Trudeau.
Them taking on an advisor, no matter how impressive that person is, doesn't really change anything materially.
The Liberals are hoping it does, and that Carney will chart a course to economic growth when he addresses MPs tomorrow. And Omar, it comes as the NDP gathers in Montreal for its first caucus retreat since breaking that political pact with the Liberals.
Michael Couture in Nanaimo. Mike, thank you. There are questions tonight over what the government might do if Air Canada's 5,200 pilots go on strike next week. With talk stalled, the country's largest airline is planning to suspend most of its operations as soon as Sunday, putting thousands of travelers and their plans in jeopardy. CTV's Garrett Barry reports.
At the check-in lines today, travelers facing a new complication, wondering whether they'll be able to get back home on time.
Because I have to come back to work, so I don't know if it'll affect our flight coming back.
Air Canada today said it's aiming for what it called an orderly shutdown. It could start as early as Sunday if no deal is reached with pilots. The company could eventually take almost all of its planes out of the air, frustrating the travel plans of as many as 110,000 passengers a day.
Obviously, I'd be delayed coming back to work, but I can work remotely, so that's fine. I would just be delayed coming home.
Air Canada said it will try to rebook passengers on other carriers, but is warning spots are extremely limited. Travelers will get refunds or credits to rebook if they make arrangements early. Air Canada and its pilots have been negotiating for 15 months, but the two sides are still far apart on wages. The union says their members are severely underpaid compared to American counterparts.
Remember, too, that over the course of the COVID-19 pandemic, we saw Canada's biggest airlines regionalize, with WestJet taking more of a focus further west and Air Canada taking more of the market further east. That could mean that this labor disruption might have an even bigger impact at certain airports, like this one in St. John's.
But will it cause enough trouble to urge the federal government to intervene?
This is not an economic woes that cannot be met by the industry. We have over 200 airplanes being flown in Canada by the competition.
The Liberal government is just getting hammered in the polls. I don't see how a strike helps them. Look at the government. They could have stepped in. They didn't do anything.
Today, Federal Labor Minister Steve McKinnon's office said federal mediators are helping, and government firmly believes in the collective bargaining process. Garrett Barry, CTV News, St. John's.
2 Alberta men have been sentenced to 6.5 years in prison for their roles in the blockade of the Canada-U.S. border crossing in Coutts, Alberta. With credit for time served, Anthony Olenek and Chris Carbert will serve nearly 4 years after being found guilty of public mischief and possessing a firearm last month. Olenek was also convicted of possessing a pipe bomb. The pair was charged after Mounties found guns, ammunition, and body armor in trailers near the blockade, which halted traffic for 2 weeks in a protest of COVID-19 rules and vaccine mandates. Another sentencing in Toronto today. A judge ordered former Canadian fashion mogul Peter Nygard to spend 11 years in prison for a series of sexual assaults. But when time already served is taken into account, he'll spend less than 7 behind bars. As CTV's John Woodward explains, it's only the beginning of the 83-year-old's legal troubles.
You dumb coward, you can't even turn around and look at us.
Serena Hicks traveled from Winnipeg to see Peter Nygard sentenced, supporting the woman the disgraced fashion mogul sexually assaulted, who have been waiting for this day.
This is a historic ruling. It should set precedent.
And an astonishing fall from grace for Nygard. Once a household name in fashion, the court heard Nygard's Toronto office and showroom had a private bedroom in its penthouse, that Nygard dangled jobs to vulnerable women but brought them there instead, where he sexually assaulted them. Justice Robert Goldstein said Peter Nygard is a sexual predator. He is also a Canadian success story gone very wrong. He used his wealth and his power to commit 4 sexual assaults. The first assault in 1989, the most recent in 2004 or 5, of a 16-year-old girl. The judge said Nygard displayed willful blindness about her age. The sentence of 11 years down to 6.7 years with time served means the 83-year-old will be 89 at warrant expiry date.
Peter Nygard is a sexual predator. And that is the story. That was the finding of the jury.
Nygard was dressed in a puffy jacket, hoodie, and makeshift visor. His lawyers had made much of his deterioration in jail. The judge found he was exaggerating. His lawyer says she'll appeal both the sentence and conviction.
He's just going to continue to defend himself where he can, appeal where he can, and continue to maintain his innocence in all of these matters.
Nygard also faces charges in Montreal and Winnipeg, as well as in the United States, where he faces allegations Nygard Key in the Bahamas served the same purpose as his top-floor Toronto suite.
Next will be who's in priority. Is it Winnipeg or Montreal? He'll have to go to one of those jurisdictions to face trial. That can occur while he's serving a sentence. Then go to the U.S. if he lives that long.
Hicks had encouraging words for the other women waiting for justice in their own cases.
We've got you. We've got you. And it's okay. Just don't worry. He's not coming out of jail.
As they look ahead to Nygard's next trials.
We did hear a statement from one of the survivors in this case. It reads in part, "This is ordinary women who came forward against an extraordinary man who had built up all this power to threaten and intimidate. If we can do it, so can you." John Woodward, CTV News.
Months after sharing her cancer diagnosis with the world, Catherine, Princess of Wales, made another revelation today. CTV's Alison Bamford on the public message about her private journey.
My path to healing and full recovery is long, and I must continue to take each day as it comes.
Relief and cautious optimism from the Princess of Wales, updating the world on her health.
Doing what I can to stay cancer-free is now my focus.
After what Kate calls an incredibly tough 9 months, her chemo treatments are complete. All smiles from the royal family in a rare, intimate video shared to social media.
It's an extraordinary video. We just have not seen a member of the royal family do something like this, ever.
Outside Buckingham Palace, excitement from royal watchers now that their princess is on the mend.
Amazing. Amazing that she's completed it. Like, who doesn't want that news?
The last time she appeared in a public video, Kate announced her cancer diagnosis.
The test after the operation found cancer had been present.
The first video where she was seated on the bench, she definitely looked frailer there than she does now. She definitely looks much healthier now.
Doctors discovered the cancer after Kate's abdominal surgery in January, but the type and stage of cancer were never made public. The news came after growing speculation about why she hadn't been seen for weeks. Rumors made worse when the palace released this photo that turned out to be manipulated.
The palace had to do something like this in her own voice and also showing her in moving pictures. So this is a sharp change in the approach of the palace.
Today, the princess is thanking those who stuck by her side during her treatment.
I enter this new phase of recovery with a renewed sense of hope and appreciation of life.
Part of that new phase includes gradually getting back to her royal duties. Kate says she's looking forward to working again and taking on a few more public engagements in the coming months. Omar?
All right, Allison, thank you. There's increased tension across the Middle East tonight after deadly airstrikes in northwestern Syria. At least 18 people were killed and dozens wounded after an attack on several military sites in Hama. Syria's foreign ministry is blaming Israel, calling the strikes, quote, blatant aggression. Israel has not commented. We have an inside look tonight at the danger and desperation in northeastern Syria, at a refugee camp where most are women and children. Many are families of ISIS fighters. CTV's Avery Haynes reports from the front lines of what some are calling a lost generation.
They've been nicknamed the cubs of the caliphate, the children of foreign ISIS fighters who don't know a world outside this fence, indoctrinated by barbaric ISIS ideology and banished and forgotten by the outside world. And so they see us as the enemy, yelling that we're infidels. The little boy in the red shirt makes a threat to slit our throats. And then they started pelting rocks at us. Look out! Kids are throwing rocks to get close to the fence. Oh, jeez. And yelling Allah Akbar and giving the ISIS salute. Look how close that came. These tents are essentially the cells of this outdoor prison with a population of more than 40,000 people. Many are the wives and children of ISIS fighters. They have not been charged with any crimes and live in conditions that the UN describes as a blight on the conscience of humanity. Canada has repatriated dozens of women and children from this area, called the Annex, where about 6,000 foreigners from more than 40 countries are imprisoned.
The Annex is the most dangerous area. The children there are the most violent. Female ISIS police control that section.
And they do so with an iron fist, flogging and even executing those who dare break ISIS rules. When we ask these women what country they're from, they say the Islamic State. And then one points her finger in the air, considered an ISIS salute. And it's that kind of reaction that has people describing this camp as a ticking time bomb. There are security issues as well. Many times people escape from here. Just this past weekend, 5 foreigners escaped. And earlier this year, a Canadian woman was smuggled out just before 6 of her children were repatriated to Canada. Avery Haynes, CTV News, Al Hol Camp, Syria.
We have some dramatic video to show you tonight of a bridge collapse in Vietnam after being struck by a typhoon. Dashcam footage shows the moment the bridge gave way, plunging a truck and several other vehicles into the river below. At least 3 people have been rescued and a search is underway for 13 others. coming up.
The fact that you were both together now in heaven gives me a little bit of comfort.
The Gaudreau brothers are laid to rest in Pennsylvania. Plus, Hollywood loses an unmistakable voice.
It's a part of our past, Ray.
Longtime Calgary Flame Johnny Gaudreau and his brother Matthew were laid to rest today in Pennsylvania. They were killed last month by a suspected drunk driver. And in yet another heartbreaking moment, we learned that Johnny's wife, Meredith, is expecting their third child. Here's CTV's Andrew Johnson.
Outside a Catholic church in suburban Philadelphia, two hearses carry two caskets. John and Matthew Gaudreau, together in death as they were so often in life.
They were attached at the hip. They slept in the same room up until college, and neither of them ever wanted that to change.
The fact that you were both together now in heaven gives me a little bit of comfort, knowing you are, of course, together. I know John would not be able to live a day without his brother. He loved him so much.
The Gaudreau brothers were out riding bikes in their home state of New Jersey last month, the day before their sister's wedding, when they were hit and killed by a suspected drunk driver.
I urge everyone to never drink and drive. Call a ride. Please do not put another family through this torture.
Several NHL players and Commissioner Gary Bettman looked on as 29-year-old Matthew and 31-year-old John, the longtime Calgary Flame known as Johnny Hockey, were remembered. The brothers described as people who put family ahead of everything else.
I love you, John, so much. He didn't have a bad bone in his body. He never spoke badly about anyone. The most humble person I've ever met.
Both men will never meet children already on the way. Matthew's wife is expecting their first in December. John's had become pregnant with their third just weeks before his death.
Every time he looked at me, he would just say, "You're nuts, you know that?" 3 kids. Noah, our oldest, hasn't even turned 2 yet, but I look at it as the ultimate blessing. How lucky am I to be the mother of John's 3 babies.
She also spoke about Calgary, the place Johnny Gaudreau called his home away from home, thanking Calgarians for their kindness and confirming her husband will forever be a Calgary Flame. Andrew Johnson, CTV News, Vancouver.
Still ahead.
And I don't see why they felt like I was a threat.
An NFL star speaks out after being detained. Plus, fans sound off on the new PWHL team names. New police body cam video has been released of the traffic stop of Miami Dolphins star Tyreek Hill hours before the football team's home opener.
Get out! Get out! Get out!
Police can be seen pulling Hill from his vehicle and forcing him to the ground after he put up the window of his sports car. Hill spoke with NBC News about the traffic stop today.
You think you were speeding? Hey, I have no idea. But I wasn't going like 80 or 70 or 60. Surprising to me that I got pulled over.
Miami-Dade police say they have launched an internal investigation and one officer has been placed on administrative duties. After the incident, Hill scored a touchdown in the Dolphins' home opener. Canada's Professional Women's Hockey League is hoping to build on the popularity of its inaugural season, unveiling new names and logos for its teams. The league announced 6 new identities to be sewn on the sweaters and into the hearts and minds of fans. CTV's Heather Wright has the reaction.
New season, new identities. The 6 teams of the Professional Women's Hockey League will take to the ice with new looks this season, as names and logos were unveiled today. The Montreal Victoire, Toronto Scepters, Ottawa Charge, New York Sirens, Minnesota Frost, and Boston Fleet.
Montreal is nice.
Yeah, Montreal is nice. The logos are nice, like fresh.
Working under a compressed timeline, the league had around 9 months to develop team names and logos, something that usually takes a year and a half. Officials wanted to capture each team's city and choose names that connect with fans.
Cultural influences, heritage. It was very important for us to maintain the primary colors to ensure that our fans could continue to sport their season 1 merch proudly.
While the league says it was a small internal group that worked with outside agencies to develop the names and logos, they say they also look to players and fans for inspiration.
It's going to be what our team's going to rally around, what the city's going to rally around, what our fans going to be all about.
But not everyone is sold.
The Minnesota one's really just an F.
Others questioning Ottawa's new logo.
It looks like the flame symbol.
What do you think of the Toronto Scepter's name?
That's... I don't like it.
The Toronto Scepter's logo also catching the eye of Swifties.
She's like, oh my God.
Pointing out the similarities with her cheerleading uniform from the Shake It Off video. In its inaugural season, the PWHL shattered records, fans packing arenas and buying merchandise faster than the league could keep in stock. These new team names and logos, the next step for a league that's just getting started, and one more reason for fans to get excited for Season 2. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
After the break, a legendary voice lost.
No, I am your father.
Saying goodbye to iconic actor James Earl Jones. One of Hollywood's most distinctive and recognizable voices has gone silent at the age of 93. Actor James Earl Jones transcended generations and delighted audiences for decades. CTV's Adrian Gabriel with his story.
It's been delightful for me, yeah.
He had the gift of a golden voice.
It'll be as if they'd dipped themselves in magic waters.
James Earl Jones possessed a booming baritone, yet he delivered each word with a velvet touch.
It's hard to explain. It's like there's an electrical connection.
Though he was born with a stutter in the small town of Arkabutla, Mississippi, where he also had to overcome racial prejudice long before becoming a beloved star on the stage and the silver screen.
You have disgraced yourself, and you must be punished.
With a commanding presence on and off camera, Jones rose to stardom as the voice of Darth Vader.
No, I am your father.
Later laying down his voice in The Lion King.
One day, Simba, the sun will set on my time here.
Jones made his debut on stage in 1958. In 2022, a Broadway theater was renamed in his honor. Working well into his 80s, he won 2 Emmys, a Golden Globe, 2 Tonys, and an honorary Academy Award for his lifetime of work.
And I was never here.
From The Hunt for Red October, to The Field of Dreams, to Coming to America, on screen and in life, Jones was royalty.
This is King Jaffe Joffer.
The goal wasn't to be a billionaire or to be a Hollywood star, to be a part of good storytelling. The goal was about that. I found you!
Staying true to his values, Jones found his voice in life and gifted it to the world.
People will come, Ray. People will most definitely come.
James Earl Jones was 93 years old. Adrian Gabriel, CTV News, Toronto.
And that's a snapshot of this Monday for all of us at CTV National News. Good night, and thanks for watching.